Are you ready to experience the 4-pass loop? You can virtually by watching the rest of this video. But if you want to experience the real thing, this video will let you know in advance what to expect when you get there, and it's full of information and tips that will help you plan for an epic journey. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Finally set. All right. This is the top of Buckskin Pass, the first pass that I have to cross. View looking backwards from where I came and then where I'm going. Wildflowers are just everywhere. I'm taking a break about halfway down Buckskin. I have to be honest, that was very challenging. The down is pretty fun, not too technical, but enough to keep you on your toes. I'm really loving the trail and I can't wait for the next 3 days. And this is a nice little spot. It's shaded. I'm going to flip my camera around and let you see what it looks like. So it's shaded, has a nice little water feature, little creek, some waterfalls. Anyway, and some big trees. So nice spot for a break. Okay, so I have to cross this. Okay, here goes. I'm actually excited about this because my feet are hot, tired, and sore. Well, I made it to Snowmass Lake and the end of my first day. 8+ miles, 3,000 feet elevation gain, and I'm ready for a rest.
It's a view from the campsite this morning.
I woke the second morning to the beautiful backdrop of Snowmass Mountain towering above Snowmass Lake. It was just an awesome sight. Day 2 starts with a very steep incline away from the lake. It was very difficult, especially with legs that weren't warmed up yet, and it lasted, I don't know, maybe a half of a mile. And then the next thing you hit is a scree crossing. And I was warned about this scree crossing by a lot of people at the campsite. While it was, I don't know if the word sketchy is right, it did require careful foot placement, but I didn't feel like it was as bad as what everyone made it out to be. I actually kind of thought it was fun.
Actually, now I have to go all the way to the top. It is so beautiful here.
So I just passed the scree field. Be aware it's pretty sketchy, but it's doable.
And there's today's goal. Almost to the top of Trailrider. So that's what's on the other side of Trailrider Pass. And that's where we came from. Another nice spot for a break, but I'm eaten up by flies. They're just everywhere. But a beautiful view, nice shaded spot.
The most difficult part of the entire trail for me was coming down Trailrider. My legs were shaking, my knees were aching, and my toes were blistered. Bugs were very heavy on day 2. I had dozens of flies and mosquitoes swarming around me. I did bring a mosquito net and wore it most of the second day, but probably should have put it on way before I did. Another thing that you don't have to put a lot of effort into, in my opinion, is water. There's water almost everywhere on the trail. I didn't carry more than 2 liters at any time, and that probably was more than I needed to have.
Well, this is the view from my campsite tonight. This is the view from my campsite the other direction. So I have a waterfall on one side and a peak on the other. It's perfect. Got a wonderful waterfall flat ground and a fire pit. Can't ask for any more. That was a heck of a climb. I'm at the top of the waterfalls, which I'll show you in a second, but 15 minutes from my campground to here. There's the top. Completely surrounded by mountains. At 9:01, I made it to the top of Frigid, and this is the view on the other side. And that's where I'm going. See all the people up there?
Sure. Let me stop choking on the water.
In the valley after the last pass. About halfway back to the beginning. Last water crossing. Still my last water crossing. I'm on my way across. The water feels awesome. It's very cold. I'm about 4 miles from the end. The valley is surrounded on 3 sides by mountains.
Man, just rewatching that video makes me want to go back. I love that trail. It was so beautiful and it was fun. It was just one of the greatest experiences I've ever had backpacking. I put together some tips to help you plan your 4-pass loop experience. Everything from getting to the trailhead to which direction should you hike, how to find camping spots are all covered and more. If you enjoyed the highlight video or find these tips useful, I'd appreciate it if you'd consider liking my video. And if you want to know when the next one comes out, subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the tips. A significant part of my planning was on how to get to the trailhead. This is so important because if you don't get it right, you might not get the hike. It took a lot of research for me to figure out how to get to the trailhead and to navigate all the restrictions. Reservations, parking, buses, timing, shuttle. To help you, I created another video where I share options to get to the trailhead and what the trade-offs are between them. Check it out in the link at the top of this video. Even though the 4-pass loop is well maintained and easy to follow, one of the best things I did was change the background of my phone to an image that showed all the turns, mileage, elevation changes, and trail numbers, so I could look at it without unlocking my phone. I got this great idea off Facebook from other hikers, John Ingelkheimer and Jordan Chappell. This was so beneficial to me. On the 8 o'clock shuttle were lots of other hikers, some just going to Maroon Bells, most going to Crater Lake, and a few doing the loop. After being dropped off by the shuttle at the Maroon Bells, a beautiful spot, there's a 2-mile hike to get to the loop. This 2-mile trek is very rocky. Soon after starting, there's a self-registration box. Registration is simple and free, but this area gets a little backed up after a bus unloads. All that's required is to fill out a form with basic information and where you plan on camping. Just after registration, the trail splits for those going clockwise towards the West Maroon and those going counterclockwise towards Buckskin. I went counterclockwise when the trail split. I was the only one going counterclockwise, so I continued alone. There's a lot of conversation about whether you should go counterclockwise or clockwise, and to be honest, it's beautiful both directions. I've only been counterclockwise, but you see the same things either way you go. I chose counterclockwise because I wanted to get Buckskin out of the way. Buckskin is the largest climb. Going counterclockwise, it'll be your first climb of the trip. The second most difficult climb was probably West Maroon, and that's because it's so steep. It isn't very long, but it's very steep. And then the most difficult down is Trailrider. In fact, I would say it was the most difficult part of the entire trip. I just struggled. Going down is so steep, my knees hurt and my legs were shaking when I finally got to the bottom. But it has some unique scenery through that section, so it's kind of cool, especially coming down into Fravert Basin. There are 3 great resources I want to share with you. The first being All Trails. All Trails is super helpful, both in planning and then on the day of your hike. So for planning, it gives you an idea of the map, the elevation. It has reviews from other hikers. It has weather, photos. And the great thing about it when you use it on trail is it lets you know when you get off trail. And you don't have to have a cell signal for it to work. It works off GPS. And it's super helpful. I've used it on other trips and it's helped me keep on the trail. With the 4-pass loop, it's pretty obvious where you need to go, but there are a couple times I wasn't quite sure should I take this turn or not, and the app was very helpful in letting me know when to take the turn. The next suggestion is the Aspen Trail Finder map, and I love this map. It's unique in the way it's drawn, and it shows a lot more of the landmarks that aren't typically shown on other maps. And the other thing it provides is a difficulty rating every few miles, and those are indicated by the colored squares on the map. And lastly, the USDA puts out a campsite map, and this is extremely useful. I was very concerned about finding campsites, and I used this map kind of to pre-plan, and then I'm worried, oh, is it going to be available when I get there? But the thing about the way the campsites are laid out at 4-pass loop is if there's one campsite, there's quite a few campsites clustered around it. So even if the specific one that you wanted isn't available, there are a lot more there. As an example, at Snowmass Lake, they had probably, I don't know, a few listed on that map, but there's 40 or 50 campsites at Snowmass Lake. So you won't have a problem finding them. My suggestion is just look at the USDA map before you go, kind of plan where you want to camp. And then when you get there, if you see somebody camping, there's most likely another campsite close by. So that's my suggestion on campsites. Don't stress out about it, but do a little pre-planning on where you want to camp. I was very lucky with weather. All 3 days were beautiful. It didn't rain once. And the second day was completely sunny the entire day. In fact, I was struggling between wearing a hooded sun shirt and wearing a short sleeve shirt. It was very warm with the exertion put out, but it was also sunny, and I got a little bit of sunburn on the second day, and so I was trading off between wearing the sun shirt and not wearing the sun shirt. I eventually just wrapped it around my neck because that's really where my sunburn was happening. So, but for weather, it's really important to check out what the weather is going to be like when you're there. I actually did it several days in advance, and then every day I looked at it again to be sure I was bringing the right clothes. One thing you got to consider is where you're going to sleep. This map that I'm going to show you, I think it's awesome. It's mountainweather.com. I'll put the link in the notes, but it gives you 3 different elevations. You can look at when you're up in the peak, what the temperature is going to be, and then when you're staying in the valleys or the lower parts where you're actually camping, what the temperature is going to be at night. So I think it's fabulous, and I used it to plan. For my trip, it was low 60s, upper 50s during the day, and then in the 40s overnight. And I did really fine with just long sleeve shirt and pants and a 30-degree bag. I wasn't cold at all. I only wore my long sleeve hooded sun shirt in the mornings, and then whenever the sun kind of was beating down on me, just to cover up from the sun, not because I needed it for warmth. For me, a t-shirt was good enough, and I'm sure you noticed I was wearing a t-shirt most of the time during the hike. I hope those tips were helpful to you. I'll put links in the notes to all the sites I referenced, so hopefully that'll be helpful. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer anything that I can, or point you in the direction of somewhere you can get an answer. If you have tips for people that I didn't cover, feel free to add them in the comments as well.